Welcome to the Jones Zone, a podcast by Darryl and JJ Jones.
All right, everybody. Thank you again for joining us for another episode of the Jones Zone. Today, we have got Nicole Johnson of Royal Financial Services. We're going to talk about a really, really interesting topic, credit repair. Thank you for being here, Nicole. I really appreciate this. This should be hopefully fun. And, so what inspired you to start this business or to start into the field of credit repair?
To be honest, myself.
Oh, really?
Actually, I got to the point where I was tired of being a serial renter, is what I call it. And I was ready to actually turn my dream into a reality of buying a home. So this was maybe about 4 or 5 years ago. I hadn't been paying attention to my credit. I'm gonna be honest. And that's something that I encourage people to do at least once a year, if not more. Look and see what's on your credit report. So when I looked, I was like, oh, this is not going to get me what I want. So there's some things I need to tackle here. And I actually reached out to a best friend of mine who knew someone who actually helped with credit repair. I'm not going to name any names, but the experience was not the greatest. And I end up just doing everything myself. So after going through all that and then purchasing my home, I decided I wanted to help other people out there that might be going through the same thing that I was going through.
How long have you been doing it?
I've actually been doing credit repair for almost 2 years now.
Awesome. So it's pretty successful.
Yes.
All right. Well, I have a series of questions. So question number 2, can you share personal journey? You kind of almost did that. I wonder if we just skip question 2, or do you have another story about it? I think you did that.
I mean, aside from just working on my own, I would say the other thing would just be helping my family and friends. So by me helping them, they pretty much encouraged me to add this as a business, basically. I had already had a business for 15 years where I've been doing personal and small business taxes. So the credit repair was just an additional service that I added on top of what I've been already doing. So my family saw the results that they were getting. They were like, you need to start making this an actual business and getting paid customers, because I was just doing it for them just because I wanted to help them.
Oh, that's very, very nice. So, so what are the most misconceptions people have about credit?
I would say the biggest misconception that I hear from most people are, if I don't get a credit card, if I don't have a vehicle or something in my name, then, my credit is fine. When in fact, if you don't have credit at all, it's actually looked at as having bad credit, because when you then go to actually want to get a credit card or a vehicle or something in your name, they don't have any credit history to go off of. So they can't tell if you're credit worthy enough to lend you, whatever it is that you're asking to be lent. So I would say that's probably the biggest misconception I would say about credit that I've seen with a lot of my clients. I was like, nope, got to get you some credit rolling so you can, start having a credit score and show that you're credit worthy.
What are the key steps someone should take to start repairing their credit? Or even, I guess there's almost 2 topics. There's repairing credit and then establishing credit. Is that fair to say?
Yes. There is definitely a 2-part. So basically credit, the biggest chunks of credit is made up of your payment history, your credit history, how long you've actually had credit, and then how are you paying? Are you paying the credit on time, as well as what's your limits? Do you have high utilization? So your credit is established based on that. And then there's some small factors, percentage that talks about how many new accounts you have, how many accounts you have altogether, as well as what type of accounts that you have. So revolving credit versus personal loans and so forth. But the biggest chunks is literally paying your paying your bill balances on time and keeping those balances low. So usually what I tell people, the first step would be is to just get your credit report. And you can get that from freeannualcreditreport.com. You can get, I want to say it's one a year, but I think since the pandemic, I believe you can check once a month now for free. So the first step would just be getting your credit report and seeing what's on there, literally. And then once you see what's on there, look at things that are not accurate that are on there. And that can be, your name being misspelled incorrectly, your name being flipped around. Let's say your middle name is showing first versus your middle name. Those are inaccuracies. Looking at if you have addresses that don't belong to you on there. So really pulling your credit, evaluating and looking at it. And if you don't know what you're looking at, then that's when you reach out to someone who's a professional to help you.
Like yourself.
Mm-hmm. Yes, like myself.
All right. So how do you approach disputing inaccuracies? Let's start with that first. So let's say you have an inaccuracy in your credit report. What is one to do at that point?
I have a free ebook that I give to a lot of people who reach out to me that literally walks them through 7 ways of repairing their credit and establishing credit. So I'm all about, helping people. I'm not trying to break anybody's pocket. So if I can give you the tools and teach you how to do it yourself, I'm all for that. I'm a God-fearing woman, so I believe in teaching a man how to fish so that he can eat for a lifetime, as opposed to giving him the fish and he only eats for the night. The one step, actually, after you get your credit report and you see that there's inaccuracies, it depends on who those inaccuracies are with. Is it with the credit agencies? Because you would tackle that differently than if it's an inaccuracy that's with the actual furnisher. And that means the person that who's saying you owe them money, right? Depending on what it is, there are a ton of things on the internet where you can literally just write a letter and dispute and say, hey, this information that you're reporting is not accurate. It needs to be updated or it needs to be removed. And because of the Fair Credit Reporting Act, the credit agencies are held accountable to report accurate information. If it's not accurate, they have to remove it. I would say just doing the research. You can, I could provide my ebook that walks people through some simple steps that they can do. But the main thing would be, knowing what your rights are as a consumer and then challenging those things with the credit agencies and with the furnishers.
I thought I had read somewhere that, if the credit agency does get a complaint or something like that, they actually have to respond. Fair to say?
Yes, they have to investigate.
How do you approach disputing inaccuracies on your credit report? We talked about if the credit agency has an accuracy, but what happens if Nordstrom has a ding on you or a Visa or MasterCard and it's not yours? Walk us through that. How do you approach that?
So I usually, if you can reach out to the furnisher, let's just say it's a late payment. First of all, let me say this. If it's a late payment that actually is your late payment, you can also work with the furnishers to get those removed too. And the process to that is just calling them up and saying, and you want to call the corporate office and just saying, where do I send a goodwill deletion letter to?
What's it called?
Goodwill deletion letter.
Okay. Got it.
They'll usually, they'll give you an address or a fax number and they say, you can send it here. You want to put your name, your account number and all that stuff. And you basically just want to say, I was late whenever it was that you were late. I missed the payment. I was out of the country. Whatever the reasoning was, I was having some financial hardship. As long as your account is now current, a lot of these creditors in good faith, they'll say, okay, I'll go ahead and delete it. That's usually how I tell people to tackle that. Now, if that doesn't work, because there are some furnishers out there, I'm not going to name names, that will say, no, we don't do that, which is fine. You can then, of course, dispute that with the credit agencies, and that's Equifax, Experian, and TransUnion, because honestly, 9 times out of 10, it's being reported inaccurately. The best way to go about that doesn't work with them, and especially if it's something that's not, yours, of course, tell them, hey, this is not mine. Prove that this is mine. Show me proof. And if they can't show the proof, they have to basically remove it as well. But I would say that credit repair is something that anybody can do. However, it is time consuming. So with most consumers, they may start it, but that first letter doesn't get you results sometimes. Sometimes you have to go through a sequence and you have to mention certain things and make sure that you know what the consumer laws are, and that you're mentioning that in your letter in order to get action. And not everybody knows that. You may or may not get the results, or because you didn't follow up after that first letter, nothing gets done. Reach out to someone like myself to basically, handle that for you so that you can have your time back to focus on other things.
The rules won't vary from state to state. They're basically
Yes.
federal rules, right?
Yes, the Fair Credit Reporting Act is nationwide. However, there are different state laws within the states that certain creditors have to abide by as well in addition to that. So I do encourage people to definitely check into that for the state that they're in.
Or you would check it if you're working
Or
for them.
yeah,
Now, is there an amount of time? So let's say I had it. Well, no, let me ask you this. Will they vary? So, for example, I know that being in the business for so long, 34 years selling real estate, that if there's a late payment on a mortgage, that's kind of the kiss of death. I think people typically have to wait around a year until that falls off. Is that what you're seeing still? It's been a while since I've seen that. But, or do you know, is it change or?
It's actually 2 years. So with any late payment, usually they're looking at your credit history as far back as 2 years. And yes, one late payment on a mortgage, even a credit card, could drop your score up to 120, 180 points, just being one late payment.
Ouch.
So yeah, that's why, payment history is it's about 35% of what makes up your credit history is your payments. So, as soon as you miss one, it definitely taints you. And it's crazy because now you're back on track. It might only go up a few points. So the key would be to then having that late payment removed. That's where that goodwill deletion comes in. If it's for an open account, if it's something that's being reported for, let's say, a closed charged off account, then that's a whole other topic in itself. I know a lot of people who say, oh, I paid this off and it messed up my credit even more. And my first question I always ask, did you get in writing that they would delete it before you pay it? And they say, no. And I'm like, you want to do that because what happens is when you pay that account that's been closed and charged off, now they re-report it. It's going to be zero and paid, but now it's the negative is being re-reported. So, and most things are, they say 7 years, but a lot of creditors, they sell your stuff off. So after a while where they just like, okay, we're going to write it off and they pass it to a collection agency, that starts the time wheel all over again as well.
So it can actually get worse if you, for example, if you're late on a payment, and can it evolve and get worse when they do that? What you just mentioned, or okay, well, is there a more severe? So, for example, if you have a gas card that you're late on, compared to a credit card, compared to a mortgage, compared to a car payment, any that are far more severe on your credit rating than others, or are they all equal?
The mystery behind like the percentage or the points that you'll drop based on the level of credit it is, it's literally a mystery. You may have a credit card or a missed car payment and your score might go down 30 or 40 points. Your mortgage where it might be 100 points. There is no like proven fact of saying like, what, depending on what type of credit it is, missed payment is how much points that you will lose. I think someone who had missed, it was a credit card payment and their score dropped by 80 points. So, I mean, it just varies. I think the other factor involved in that as well is who it's reporting to. Because TransUnion, when things get reported to them, they tend to, have a higher point drop than the other credit agencies. And it's just because the algorithm that they're looking at as far as what's making that up definitely matters with each credit agency. So for instance, a car, for instance, they feel like, oh, okay, you're more likely to default on that because you missed a payment and you're going to have a repossession or something. So they might drop your score down even more for one missed payment. But it literally varies each agency and with each revolving credit that you have.
You mentioned something that was 35% of your score. What other things do make up your one's credit score?
So 35%, as I mentioned, is payment history, right? The other 30% is the amount that you actually owe. So your balances on whatever it is that you have open, whether it's, your mortgage, your credit cards, car, and all that stuff. What's the balance that's owed versus, the amount that you were loaned? That's the other biggest chunk of your, so debt, basically. About 15% or so of that is the length of credit. So how long have you actually been having these accounts and they've been, revolving? So has it been a year? Has it been 2 years? Of course, that's the other thing that a lot of people and some of these credit agencies out here, they'll have all this stuff removed. And it's like, okay, well, now you've removed that credit history for that particular account. Whereas the whole account didn't need to come off. It just needed to be updated. So you have to be careful and know what to, attack as far as dispute versus what you want to leave on there. Because, removing something that you've had for 10 years could also affect your credit score. Another portion of your credit score, about 10%, is new credit, and that's inquiries or you opening new accounts. So inquiries and new accounts make up about 10% of your other credit. And then the rest is just the types of credit that you have. Again, like I said, revolving, if it's, student loans, mortgage, those type of things, credit cards make up about, I want to say 10% of the remaining of your credit scores. So it's good to have a mix, because if you don't, you go out there and you're trying to look. One of the things I ran into, they were like, well, this looks good, but you don't have any mortgage history. And I was like, yeah, I'm trying to get a house. And I was like, how can I have, mortgage history if I have never had a house? Most people are like, yeah, I don't want that. But you want to have a mix of credit, a personal loan, a credit card, a car, a house or something, property, something of that sort. And then, of course, make sure that you're managing and keeping those balances low.
And is there a benefit to have more cards than only one card? Let's say credit cards, for example, because those are kind of the low-hanging fruit where people can get credit cards. Is it better to have, let's say, 5 credit cards opposed to 1 credit card? Is that something that's is advisable?
I usually advise my clients to have 2 to 3.
And is it also beneficial if you have a high credit report So they have you approved at a higher rate of credit. So available credit, let's say of $10,000 is a lot better than 1,000.
The amount of the credit line is a good factor. However, the biggest thing that they're going to be looking at is how much of that is being used. So let's just say you have a $10,000 credit limit, but you're using 60% of it versus your $1,000 credit limit, you're only using 10%. That $1,000 one is actually going to be the more positive on your credit than that 10,000 because exceeding the balance that, we advise you to have. Most people say keep your balances at 30% of the credit line, but I usually tell people 10 to 15% is where you want to stay. So once that credit card gets reported to the agencies, have that balance at no more than 10, 15%. And then as long as you have the money, you can run it back up after the statement date and then make sure you pay it back down before that next statement date rolls around. So that's pretty much how you want to work that. The other thing is if people have, let's say, high debt, right? And you end up getting a new credit card and it has that 10,000 or something. If that available credit kind of balances out your total debt, that helps as well too. So basically what that means is people could have multiple trade lines. They have a high balance on one, but all the other ones have zero balance. So that, it's always a healthy balance and a mix basically is what you want to look at. Your overall debt and then of course your debt per each individual trade line you have open.
I'm guessing that a lot of people are thinking, okay, I've got 3 credit cards. I'm going to go buy a house. I think that I should go ahead and pay those off and cancel the cards. That's not good advice. Is that fair to say?
Yes. You do not want to cancel your cards because again, that's taking away that credit history. So you want that credit history to stay on your credit. I always tell people, look, pay it down and then put something small on it, like a subscription, Netflix, Hulu or something, because you still have to show that you're using it as well, but keep it low. But do not close it because that, again, like I said, that length of credit history it equates to about 15% of your credit score. So as soon as you close an account, you no longer have that credit history and your score goes down. There's a lot of people who, they do that not knowing that it ends up, affecting their credit, that they closed it.
Is there any benefit to just paying it off every month? Is that, for example, better than keeping it a low balance if one can, of course, do that? Or is it the same? As long as you keep it 10%, 15% or less, it's equivalent to even paying it off every month.
It depends on when you're paying it off. And what I mean by that is you don't want to have it being reported as a zero balance every month, because then it looks like you're not using it. And the whole thing of credit is to use it responsibly, keep it low and pay it. But if your balance is showing zero by that statement, and usually a statement date is about 3 to 4 days after your payment date. That statement date is just as important as your due date, right? So you could pay it off every month, but I always suggest leave a small amount on there for that statement date, that 10 to 15% balance, then go ahead and pay it off as soon as after it's been reported. So at least it continues to show that you're actually using it and you're being responsible with your credit.
Oh, that's great advice. Are there any tools or software that you recommended for managing credit repair?
Yes, there are some, but I always suggest that people do their research and figure out what works best for them. When I started in credit repair, I did not know that there was so many other softwares that are out there that were available, right? So I started with the one that basically came across my desk. I don't have the book over here, but I did some research and was reading this book about, credit repair and so forth. And they had a software that they suggested for you to use. And the software was a good starter software, Credit Repair Cloud. And by starter software, you're just now getting started, right? And you're still trying to figure things out and learn things and so forth. But to have a good system in place, and by system, I mean, your calendars, your which is basically your scheduling, your communication with your clients, reminders and so forth. You want to look at something that is a little more user friendly. So the software that I currently use, why did I draw a blank on the software that I'm using? Dispute Box.
Oh, what is it called? Dispute Box?
Dispute Box. Dispute Box is the software that I currently use. And the reason why I like this software is because one, it has an app. And with, most things, everybody, they walk around, they always have their phone in their hand, and everybody has this app for this, app for that. It makes it a little more accessible than going to pulling up the Google or the Safari or whatever you have and going to website. People on the go. They just want to tap an app and see what's going on, right? So I really like this software because it has an app where you can communicate with your customers. They can see and get all the updates as far as what's going on with their credit, what you've done, what round of dispute letters you're on. So that's a really good software. Another software is Dispute Panda. That's a really good software as well. And they provide a lot of different tools that you can use, some that works for you, some that works for your client. But the biggest thing that I also suggest is that you find a good CRM, okay? And that's pretty much your customer system. So the one that I use is called Dispute Flow. So I use Dispute Fox for, the credit repair letters and so forth. And then I use Dispute Flow to keep that communication and updates for my automation. Because after a while, you start getting a lot of clients, you don't have time to nurture and communicate and make all of them feel important because it's, you're doing it manually. Dispute Flow takes that and run with it and does all your automation. The one thing I really love about it is it sends out happy birthday messages and all this stuff. So, it makes my clients feel, important, which they are.
These are tools that you use. Are these tools that a consumer could also use?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. You can Google Dispute Fox. You can Google Dispute Panda, Credit Repair Cloud. Again, I suggest people to kind of look and see what they're offering and what it is your needs are that you're looking for to determine which one works best for you, as well as cost effectiveness, because you don't want to be paying $900, $1,500 a month if you don't need to. So definitely do the research. Those are just a few that are out there that I know about. There's a whole bunch, more that are out there. So it's just really a matter of doing the research.
You had answered one of my other questions, which is the cost, but at around $900 a month subscription cost. Actually, it sounds as though that's more something that's probably better used by someone like yourself who has, because you have unlimited clients on that. Is that how that works?
Mm-hmm. So Dispute Flow, actually, the subscription is $297 a month for Dispute Flow. And that's my CRM platform. That's my automation. So it takes care of all my emails, my communication and updates and everything like that. So that's $297 a month. Dispute Fox, they have different tiers. So they have a beginner package, they have a middle one, and they have, once you reach a certain amount of clients, then it becomes unlimited. And I believe that one is $397 is what it is. Yeah.
Explain the differences between credit repair and credit counseling.
So the difference between credit repair and credit counseling. So with the credit repair, I'm actually taking action, doing the work to clean up everything for you because you have some negative items that are reporting. Credit counseling is more of me just having a conversation with you like we're having right now and giving you tips and tricks on how to maintain your credit, how to build credit, how to tackle anything that's negative on your credit on your own. So literally, I'm usually trying to do the credit counseling for the younger folk because I didn't have anybody who taught me the importance of credit. And this is what you want to do. Don't apply for every credit card that comes to you saying that you're available. Keep those balances low. So it's literally just educating on the importance of credit and credit building and so forth. Yeah.
What are some of the effective marketing strategies you use to grow your credit repair business?
Bootstrapping.
Bootstrapping.
That's the term. Bootstrapping. That was a terminology that I learned when I got into the whole credit repair. And I was like, what the heck is bootstrapping? Not spending any money whatsoever. So I started, as I mentioned earlier, I started with family and friends, just, helping them after I, of course, cleaned up my credit. And then I think I worked on like my siblings or something like that. Then it was, let me reach out to my other family members and so forth. So literally just using those people that you've already worked with to put the word out there. So a lot of my clients have all been referred to me by someone else. So you can literally market and grow your business without spending any money at all. Social media is free. Some people use ads, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with that. Just being consistent with posting on different social media platforms like Instagram or Facebook, just giving, educational moments to different people, a video or something of the sort. But literally the people that would be the best way of growing your business because they're going to be talking about you to other people and say they've done X, Y, and Z for me. You should check them out. So I'm always, making sure that the clients that I work with are well taken care of and they have the best experience because a negative review can hurt you just as bad as a good review can help you. So you always just, want to make sure that you're taking care of your clients. And because I'm doing all this just from my heart is why I started this. I'm very passionate about what it is that I do because it was a major breakthrough for me to be able to buy my home as a first generational homeowner and I'm a divorced single mom. So that's literally why I got into this. I'm like, if I can do it, you can do it. Let me help you do it. I'm
Love it.
always, yeah, big on helping my clients with that. And then they end up saying, I met this person, they're talking about this, and is it okay if I send them to you? I'm like, sure, absolutely. So
Heck yeah. So what are the most significant mistakes people make when trying to repair their credit? Is a common mistake that people do that when they are trying to repair their credit?
Yes and no. Because I mean, honestly, if really not doing your research before you send a letter out, trying to dispute online is probably, now that I think about it, one of the biggest things I say is a no-no. And the reason being is because you lose your paper trail when you do it online. Most people think, oh, okay, it's online, it's in the digital space. No, you don't want to do that. You want to actually have a printed out letter. You can handwrite it, type it up, whatever, mail it out, have that confirmation that you mailed it out, has the date on there. You want to have that in paper form. Some things you just don't want to do online because they don't, honestly, the credit agencies, they don't really pay attention to the online disputes as they do with the letter ones that come through. They have dedicated departments and people that open those letters and read them and so forth. And that's something you use in court. You can't really use and be like, okay, I clicked this button on this app. Like you got to have that paper, when you go to court when something is being violated and against the laws and stuff.
Oh, that makes a lot of sense. How do you stay updated on changes in credit laws or in regulations? Is there a go-to place for that?
Literally looking at the state codes and so forth whenever there's any updates. Subscribe to a lot of websites where they'll give me alerts, but mainly it's just a lot of reading and researching. Every time that there's a new year that rolls around, there's usually some new law that got written into effect. So just doing my homework and making sure that I'm staying on top of the Fair Credit Reporting Act laws, as well as there's another, I'm drawing a blank right now. Oh my gosh. There's another site that is really, really great with updating as far as credit, bankruptcies, and student loans. And I'm drawing a blank right now on who that is, but I am subscribed to their emailing list as well. So I get updates and so forth through them on top of me just doing my own reading and research.
I mentioned this before. It's majorly federal, but there's also some local or state updating in terms of credit rules and et cetera.
Mm-hmm. Because there's different. I mean, of course, yes, it's the federal regulations that the credit agencies and consumers have to follow, but then there's some state regulations they put in place for collection agencies on what they can and can't do, and then of course you have the medical, like HIPAA and all that. So there's different regulations and laws that's put in place depending on what the debt is. So of course, if it's medical debt, student loans, bankruptcies, there's different state and of course then the federal codes and laws.
You brought up bankruptcy. So when one does a bankruptcy, is there recovery time? Does one typically need to wait 3 years, 7 years? Is anything like that?
There's different chapters. Of course, you have the chapter 7, chapter 11, chapter 13. They each have different time frames that they stay on your credit. Technically, they're not, some of it's not supposed to be reported on your credit, but that bankruptcy is in effect for some. I can't remember if it's chapter 7 at 7 years, chapter 11 and 13 is 10 years before they're actually discharged and can be completely removed. But if they're not being reported accurately, meaning they went through the proper channels in order for that to be reported on your credit agency, it has to be removed. And it doesn't matter if it's been a year or 2 years, it has to be removed correctly. And also, if there's anything that's part of that bankruptcy, so other creditors that were included in that, those are not supposed to be reported as separate negative items on your credit as well, because they've been included in that bankruptcy. It's literally just knowing, your consumer rights of what's supposed to be on there versus what's not and how it's supposed to be showing.
Well, so bankruptcy, you can almost get a double negative because you get the original and the bankruptcy is what you're saying. Okay. So what are your long-term goals for your business and the credit repair industry?
I would say my long-term goals for my business is to, of course, grow and scale, but really educate and trying to get those younger generation who didn't have the education in the home or, at school, because they definitely are not teaching it at school. At least the last time I checked, they're not. Being able to get them earlier so that they, they're already ahead of the game as opposed to trying to fix everything after the fact. So just really trying to get to schools and be able to talk to different classes and so forth, and educate them on the importance of credit, really be able to help single divorced parents out there and teaching them how they can acquire something they didn't think that they would be able to do. And that's just financial freedom, financial wealth, financial security, all of those things that have to do with finances, being able to touch and help thousands of people in my community, as well as across the nation. And also, the other thing that I'm doing is helping small businesses. A lot of people kind of think that your personal credit is the be all and the end all when it comes to your finances of your business, but there's also a business credit score as well. So I would like to grow that part of my services and help a lot of people who are either thinking about starting a business or they just started a business, and helping them with building their business credit so they can be able to scale and grow their business. And then also, helping them with budgeting and financing so they can stay in business.
Now
So
that's
pretty much
what a great service you're providing to the community. I mean, this is a wonderful thing. So can you discuss any ethical dilemmas you faced in the credit repair industry? How do you navigate through that?
the ethical hurdles would probably be there's always stall tactics. And by that, I mean, the bureaus will send a letter and they'll say, hey, we received this letter and it doesn't appear to be from you. It appears that you're, working with a third party, right? I'm a notary. So the way to basically tackle that is, making sure that my client signs a power of attorney. So that means that I have authority to work on their behalf and stop stalling and take care of whatever this inaccuracy is that you're trying to stall on.
Just to confirm, a limited power of attorney, I'm guessing.
Limited power attorney. Literally
Okay.
just, working on, for their credit and so forth. But you'll have, some people who they don't do that. So they'll send stuff out as if they're the person who's sending it out, or they're not in compliance as far as their business. They don't have a business license. They're not official registered company, as far as business entity. So all of those things are, you want to have in check when you're out here working. You definitely, making sure that you're shutting down your computer, that you're not leaving anything open, whether you're at home or not. Every time I walk away from my desk, even though my main office is at home, I'm, locking my screen. So just, doing checks and balances and so forth. And if something does happen, that, you immediately notify your client and, say, and put a lock on whatever you need to put a lock on if something wasn't shredded correctly or whatever. Those are probably the most ethical things that I can think of that, I try to make sure that I'm following all the rules and regulations in regards to that. And each state is different. So if you're working in different states, whether you're in California, Nevada, Texas, Georgia, you can't even be in Georgia and be a credit repair company. It's not allowed. So there's, so many different things, that you want to make sure that you're checking, as far as your state and local regulations and laws, and making sure that you're being ethical and not doing things that you're not supposed to be doing.
Are there any emerging trends or technologies that you see impacting the future of credit repairs, or probably laws and etc. But what are you seeing out there?
I thought about that with this whole AI thing. So I always thought AI was going to be something when I was in my 80s or something, right? When you're younger, you're like, oh, I used to watch the Jetsons, and it's like, oh, that would be so cool. We can have video calls and look at us, right? Oh, yeah. It's this world that we thought was just only for, TV, right? And now we're dealing with it. So I definitely thought about that. Like, oh, can AI take this over? But honestly, when I call something like I don't know, let's say Amazon, for instance, you get this automation and that's AI. I want to talk to a person. So honestly, the only effect that I see is that it helped me better run my business. So I have some AI automations that are in place in my system. So I can't answer all the messages that come through social media. So my AI answers some of those for me. So I have, specific questions that are set in there with the answer. So honestly, I feel like it'll help me. I don't think it's actually going to take away from, what a lot of credit repair companies are out here doing, because people still want to talk to a person.
How do you measure your success? I mean, this almost sounds obvious. However, how do you measure success in credit repair business beyond just client credit score improvements? Is there anything that you looking for?
Yes, I have one client. She's almost there where she's, ready to start her home buying journey. She was in mid 400s and she's almost to 700. I actually told her, I said, you're at the minimum score where you can get, approved now. And she's like, no, I want a higher score. So, okay.
How long did that take to get her from 4 to 7? That's a dramatic
She
improvement.
actually started our program in January. So yeah, so she's almost to 7, just in, 7 months that I was able to accomplish that for her. But it's also because she is a good client. In addition to me working on removing the bad negative stuff, she also made sure that she was, doing her part in establishing credit building accounts, keeping her balances low, making her payments on time. It's a two-part thing here. And because she was doing that, we were able to, me and her, were able to get her scores to where they are now. So I would say the biggest measure of success with on credit scores is when she says I got approved and she has those keys.
Oh, that's
because
great.
I had a couple of clients, they were like, oh, thank you. I was able to go and get my car. And there's nothing wrong with, because some people like that's their goal. I want to get my dream car. But because I know the amazing feeling of putting that key in the door and opening the door and be like, this is mine. I work for this. That would be the biggest measurement of my success in my businesses once, I've had a client who has done that. So I have quite a few people in my program that are working towards getting their scores up to that so that we can get them, in their own.
Oh, that's awesome. What's the fastest? I mean, to me, frankly, from 400 to 707 months is very impressive. What is the fastest? It's, let's say, I don't know, you pick an arbitrary number of 100 points. I mean, can one improve 100 points in a month by doing one or two things? Or is that a little too optimistic? Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's very much possible. So the credit agencies, by law, they have 30 days to respond to whatever dispute letter that you sent out, right? Since the pandemic, though, they were giving them 45 days. And some of the agencies still kind of took advantage of that 45 days. But somewhere in 30 to 45 days, you can see a drastic improvement. So if any of those things that were negatively impacting your score come off, right? And then you've also, established some credit building accounts, you can definitely see a 100-point jump in 30 to 45 days. That's not going to happen with everybody, but it's very possible.
Wow, that's impressive. So you shared with the audience your great success story, which is just awesome. I love it. Do you have any other great success stories we can finish the podcast with? Anything comes to mind that you're super proud of? You did say that one person, but you got another one that you can think of?
I'm proud of all my just about all my clients. I will say 85% of my clients, because they follow what I tell them to do, they've all made, dramatic increases in their credit. And some of them, like even after a year later, they're still like, they might not be in my program anymore, but they're still using the credit monitoring service that I told them to use. So I'm still able to see that they're doing what they're supposed to do. And even after you're out of my program, I'm still sending you follow-up emails, doing reminders and so forth, and giving you little tricks and tips. So when I'm able to see that they're still maintaining and they're doing, the things that we talked about when they're in my program, I feel proud, because I'm like, okay, you were listening and you're taking this serious. So I have another client who, she had a bankruptcy, right, I should say, on her credit. And I've been able to get a few of the items that were reporting under the bankruptcy removed. And then on top of that, she was like, okay, I paid this down. Like, we did some financial budgeting and planning with her. And she gives me updates and reminders at least once a month. She'll say, okay, I paid this down. It's still open, but I paid the balance down and I'm going to pay this down. I'm like cheesing, because I'm trying to help you. And when you're actually doing the work, you're going to see the results. And for her, I want to say so far, since she's been in the program, her scores have gone up about 150 points. And she's been in the program for about 4 months, just by, literally following the instructions and suggestions that I give them as far as these credit building accounts. Credit building accounts are accounts that are reporting to all 3 credit agencies, because not all creditors report to all of them. So it's important to make sure that you have one that's reporting to all 3, because whatever your goals are when you go, as you know, right, Darryl, you go buy a house, the high score goes away, the low score goes away. They're focusing on that middle score. So you want to make sure whatever credit you have is reporting to all 3, so that you have a better chance at, getting approved, getting that good interest rate, whatever that may be. So I always suggest these credit building accounts, like Self, Kick, Credit Strong. There's a ton of them that are out there. And I have a link that I give to my clients. And I say, even if they don't sign up, I still send them that link. Hey, get you 2 or 3 of these. keep the balances low. And I promise you'll see improvements in your scores.
You can even get a better interest rate with a higher credit score. So, for example, let's say you do have the bare minimum of 700 or whatever it may be, and you want to get it raised to over 800. I think you would get a better interest rate, not to mention the fact it's much easier to get a loan. But is that fair to say?
Very fair to say. I'm always telling my clients, this is the minimum to get an FHA. This is the minimum to get a conventional. Let's shoot for higher than that, because I don't want you to just get approved. I want you to save money. And by saving money, that means getting a better interest rate. So of course, the higher your score is, the better interest rate you get for a mortgage, for a car, for a credit card. Like, it matters on all of those things. And that interest, people are like, oh, it's only 20%. Are you kidding me? That's a lot, for a car, for a credit card, because that's additional money that you're paying out that you don't need to do. So if we get your scores up, you get a lower interest rate, you're saving money, or you can use that extra money you were paying on interest rate and just pay more down on the principal. So you can pay off whatever you're paying for sooner than later. But I'm literally always encouraging them, let's shoot for higher. Let's not just do that minimum. Or even if you do it, it's not bad. Let's still get your score up so you can refinance later and get a better interest rate.
Yeah. So it's not really only for people that have really damaged credit. I mean, someone can have a kind of a somewhat average score, a lower, good enough to get financing, but not great. And so this is another avenue that people can use to get that and save a lot of money.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's one of the things that I provide in my consultation. I do a credit analysis showing and it's usually it's a house and then it's a car as the example. So it shows, the same house, same price, but one with an interest rate of, 20%, one with, with an interest rate of like 10% for a car. And then, for the house is like a 15% or something in a lower interest rate. How much you're actually paying for this exact same house? And the one who had the lower credit score, of course, was paying thousands and thousands of dollars more because of the interest versus the other one who, they were paying a low monthly payment and they weren't paying that much overall in the long run. So, I always use that as an analysis to kind of show, my clients like, yeah, there's nothing wrong with a 600. There's nothing wrong with even a 700 because you can get approved, but you're going to pay a lot of interest. So, why not save that money and put it in your pocket or put it towards, something else, savings or an IUL or something. Just, there's a ton of things that, you do with that extra money that you would be saving from, having higher score and lower interest rates.
Wow, that's invaluable. So, well, how do we get a hold of you? If someone's watching this video and they go, oh my goodness, I need to contact her. This is a no-brainer. What's the best way to contact you?
Best way to contact me, you can either call me at 844-CREDIT, CREDIT 2. So that's, how you can get a hold of me, or you can go to my website, which is Royal Financial Services, LLC.com.
Nicole, I thank you so much. Nicole Johnson, ladies and gentlemen, this has just been a really, really great podcast. I think this information is so, so valuable. So thank you so much for joining us here on the Jones Zone. God bless you. Have a great rest of your week. And everybody, contact Nicole if you have any credit issues.
Whatever tools I can give that help you, I'm happy to do.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much. So everybody, hey, subscribe to this channel. Hopefully this has been very helpful for you. And we're going to have other shows that are extremely helpful, and everything has to do with real estate. So thanks again for watching another episode of the Jones Zone, and go out there and have a great week, everybody. Thank you. Thanks, Nicole.